disadvantage since for now is one of the means to capture carbon or decarbonization, what the world is talking about. And India is a unique country which is really populous and different geology. So we have to choose our own pathway. We cannot follow the Scandinavian or Canadian ways of where they have to choose that mass and very less population. Pressure on aquifers and all are much less than our country. We have to learn from Asian examples also. Korea, Japan had some issues. So taking all this into account, we have to move forward, and there are a lot of work to do. Standards, policy level, safety, funding, financing. So the whole thing is open. So this is a very good platform to listen to you and learn from you, so that we can take back and have those in the policy formation. Dr. Saraswati is leading that from India. I know yesterday he was there. He also showed how we are planning to move forward, and also part of one of our subcommittees, which looks after storage and transportation part of this. So I have also gone forward, and will be publishing that report very shortly. We have third secretary from Ministry of Environment also recalled, so that we can have his views, and you can also, so that when he interacts with other stakeholders, we'll have some idea and what are the concerns and what are the challenges, and he can take it to the other side. So with this, I can hand over to Manan to conduct this. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sunil, and welcome everyone for the strategic collaboration conference. Thank you for inviting me. I'll be your moderator for the panel discussion today. To set the context for India's journey to net zero and the broader pathway to getting the globe to net zero, CCUS plays a very important role. Not just from the fact that it helps in capturing and either utilizing or storage, but the fact that it will contribute extensively to a sizable portion of where we will end up to the 1.5 or 2 degrees Celsius in future. Right? More importantly is also the fact that in India, if you look at most of these hard-to-abate sectors, CCUS will contribute more than 30 to 40% of the net zero solution. Now, in some way, this is reversal of time, where we are now, instead of exploring in production and taking out fossil fuels, we will be making circular use or pumping it back. And with this time reversal in mind, there are many tropes around the topic of CCUS. There is questions around feasibility, questions around the high cost, questions around policies needed to support, questions even around whether this kind of a technology will sustain, what if there are leakages and so on, right? But we've seen this succeed. We have seen this succeed at a global scale. Companies and countries have successfully demonstrated and scaled CCUS as a technology. What we have today is rather a unique panel where the common theme of collaboration and fostering partnerships across the different ecosystem players, whether it's the energy players, whether it's research, whether it's technology, how do we come in together? What kind of common platform is required to make and catalyze this CCUS opportunity in the future, right? So with this as an agenda, the focus today will be on having a conversation, taking away for each one of us what can we do, how can we contribute, but also the fact that collectively, how can we drive CCUS. My role today is not just steer the discussion, but given the interest of time, I'll also be a timekeeper. So pardon me in case I come across as a bit more aggressive on time, as having that dual role. So with that, let me kick off the first topic and the question in the theme of collaboration. The genesis of setting up India's first CCUS project will definitely rely on ensuring that all of the ecosystem players come together. And so my first question is around what is that common framework, how do we ensure, and what are the challenges that we see in bringing these ecosystem players together from different parts of the ecosystem. So, Mr. Neelesh, if I can ask you the first question, kick it off. Then where do you see this challenge of bringing together these ecosystem players for collaboration, and what can be done to formalize this going forward?
Hello. Yeah. Thank you, Madan. And really, this first question is always going to be very difficult. First of all, let me express my gratitude to Young Secretary, Minister of PNG, the Ministry itself, and also Chairman of India, who have invited me over here for this particular conference. Talking of the challenges and how the ecosystem can work, the first question that one would like to really answer is, why are we talking about CCUS and all? So this is of course one of the ways in which we are trying to sequester or tackle the carbon dioxide emission. Now that's all related to climate change, and we have incidentally I'm also the UNFCCC focal point for India, and we have been attending COPs. There's a lot of pressure. Not only on now India, but now on all the fossil fuel based countries to reduce their carbon footprints. And if you look at the emission and the challenge that is there in front of us today, India, we have just submitted our initial, the third national communication, and our emission level is around emission is around 2.63 gigatons. Looking at the global emissions, IPCC says it's around 59 gigatons. So that's the quantum. There is a rate of increase, it's not yet abating. Globally, we are increasing by around 1.3% on an annual basis. And for our country, last VWAR that we had, final update report, as per that, we are increasing our emission rate by 4.5% per year. So that means we are going to have a lot of emission. And we are not going to be able to meet the target of, say, 1.5 degrees centigrade, which many Western countries really want to force upon. But we stick to Paris Agreement goals, that's 2 degrees centigrade. Either of them, they are going to be difficult because there is a limited carbon budget that's available. So that requires that the carbon dioxide which is there in the atmosphere needs to be really taken out, or we have to have enough. We should do enough to not emit as much. So, what do we do as far as the policy framework is concerned? In all these international conferences that we have, especially COP, last year we organized the G20 also. So, in all of these carbon removal technologies, there is an emphasis on that. There are technology mechanisms which is there in the UNFCCC. There is a CCCM, that is Technology Network, and also the TEC, that is Technology Executive Committee. They are seized of this matter, that this is also a possibility. What really, and in the G20 New Delhi Leaders Declaration last year, this was also, I would say, because I happen to be part of the negotiation which is the last moment, removal technologies, this was inserted into New Delhi's Leaders Declaration. So, an acceptance of this as a very, very viable, very, very useful approach to deal with carbon dioxide is there. Now, the thing is, how do we translate that onto the ground? If we talk about when did we start in India, we have the National Action Plan on Climate Change, which was brought in 2009. That has a mention of carbon removal technology, CCUS especially, but it recognized that there are issues of cost. And come down to third final update report and even our national communication and a long-term low carbon development strategy which has been brought out by the government of India, basically through our ministry, and was launched, it was submitted to the UNFCCC, all have the mention of carbon CCUS, carbon capture and storage. When we look at specific implementable kind of actions which are there, if we talk of the CCTS, that's a carbon market, domestic carbon market, which is being steered by the Ministry of Power, it has the mention of the carbon capture as one of the sectoral priorities. Then for the Ministry of Environment also, the carbon market, the international carbon market is being handled by our ministry. And especially like one of the activities of the team is also carbon capture and utilization. So the policy landscape is there. Now the question is, how do we tackle the issues of cost, scalability, and then when we talk of cost, because the costs are so high, then the questions will be about finance. And there are a lot of carbon market that I talked about. That's also a probable means of finance. But then you have competition. We had CDM regime under the Kyoto Protocol till 2020. And if you look at it, scan through all the projects, India was one of the most prominent, I think. So the second one, a number of projects probably the largest, but maybe the amount that was transacted through that CCA mechanism probably the second one. And most of the projects were related to renewable energy. So you have competition when we are dealing with the problem which is dealing with the carbon dioxide emission. So we have to also see that if we are pitching this solution as with this approach as a solution to dealing with the carbon dioxide, if the country has a much cheaper option now, renewable solar at one time, maybe around just 15 or 20 years back, was around 17 rupees a unit. Now it is around 2 to 3 rupees a unit. So it has become viable. Now, of course, there would have been some support initially. There continues to be support to ensure that it is really very widespread in its adoption throughout the country. So, but still, it came out as a solution which was a viable solution, which needed some viability gap funding, and that was provided. So there are various means of ensuring finance, and I don't know whether you would like me to talk about the finance.
I'll come back on the finance point. Thank you for bringing it up.
Thank you.
So on a related note, right, you talked about solutions, CCUS as a solution to the country, and let me drop on Dr. Ranjit. On the theme of CCUS as a solution, now OIL has been at the forefront of capitalizing CCUS and your role in helping put together CCUS as a value chain. Can you talk about how do you see CCUS as a solution, as a business opportunity, not just for decarbonizing our own operations, but also for the broader industries and sectors that might be looking upon companies like MoEFCC for capitalizing the CCUS as a business opportunity?
Good morning, and thank you very much for this platform. We are actually discussing something very, very forward-looking, because a lot of work has to be done on this particular front. Two aspects. One, as part of the roundtable, I would like to sum it up that we should have a clarity in our thoughts on two aspects. One is the usage part of this loop. So capture is common for both, whether it is usage or for storage. So usage part of this loop is primarily chemical engineering, and it is more about technology. The sequestration, or when we had some nice discussion whether to call it as sequestration or storage, we were able to understand that you could say storage, then only it's a storage which will entail you an opportunity to make some finance out of it. If you say sequestration, then it is a writing of approach. I mean, on a product terms. So that's why probably the storage concept has been brought in. The storage concept would primarily be taken up by the oil and gas company, which both not Oil India, APC and Oil India, from a national oil company perspective for India, because we have been the pioneers in doing the E&P activity, where the reservoir is sitting there at a depth of 2,000 meter, 4,000 meter, 5,000 meter. We have extracted hydrocarbon. So we understand the reservoirs, we understand the formation, and the CO2, as you rightly said, have to be injected back into the same system. So having extracted, we have done the static modeling, the dynamic modeling, we have been monitoring the movement of hydrocarbon coming upstairs. Now we need to put the carbon dioxide into those pore spaces. So from a business perspective, in a long term, yes, in the hard to abate industries where CO2 is a given and the utilization component would hover around 5 to 10% max given the volume of CO2 that is getting generated, that is a business opportunity. But not today. Today we have to identify case studies where we will have to demonstrate its successful implementation, and there I will take the cue from Joint Secretary MoPMG that given the diversified geology of the country, given the diversified seismicity of the country, or given the diversified or population density of the country, given the disposition of the various industrial units across the country, irrespective of their location for whatever reason, we are not blessed with enough storage space per se, though we have enough of sedimentary basin available to us. That is another piece of constraint in terms of, that's why the finance or the opportunity cost will come later. That is another piece, even if we have sedimentary basins pan India, not a lot of data is available for those sedimentary basins. Sedimentary basins which are younger in age, having pore spaces, and when I say pore spaces, established pore spaces. Wherever ONGC, Oil India, or the other oil and gas companies have explored and produced, we have done extensive exploration. So that data is available, and that data will be of use to identify the storage possibility. But there are enough of sedimentary basin which is constrained by the other factors, and even if there are some enablers in some sedimentary basin, we do not have the data. No deep exploration has been done. In addition to the sedimentary basin, then basalts could be a possible horizon, but no study has been done. So significant quantum of piloting in terms of available data and CO2 sequestration is one aspect. Second aspect is a filtering mechanism or a screening mechanism to negate the area which is not possible to implement. And then the third, in between, we have to undertake dedicated exploration campaign for the purpose of sequestration. So probably that would come much later after only we get the success. So right now we are not looking at any renting out of pore space, but yes, in the long run, that could be the concept.
Thank you, Mr. Rajeev. Let me then, on the tone of dedicated exploration, as you rightly said, there is need to explore. There is need to also create a database of storage spaces available. May I call upon Ms. Dushma Rao? From the standpoint of dedicated exploration, how do you look at the one part of ensuring that there is storage space that is available, that is the whole ecosystem created around carbon capture and mitigate to where the storage site would be? Are there collaboration strategies that you have as a company in terms of talking to and collaborating with these kind of industries beyond just the energy sectors? And do you see challenges in these collaboration strategies going forward? How do we solve them?
Good morning, GGS, MoEFCC, CMD Oil, all the esteemed members of this roundtable. Let me start by saying that, on a very close front, I have been involved in discussions regarding CCUS for the past 1 year. One thing which has come to my understanding is that there has to be not only a collaboration, there has to be a consortium, and I should right off say that CCUS or the carbon capture or the carbon market, it has to be taken up in a mission mode. First of all of us, whether it be the source or whether it is the agencies who are going to involved in the transportation or the capture, or the agencies like Oil MoEFCC who are going to identify the sales. We all need to be on one level in understanding what the regulatories are, what is going to be the entire workflow. So I think this is, since yesterday, this is what was going on in my mind when we were discussing yesterday's CCUS platform. Because right now, and I'll again repeat, we are in silos. I believe I know the best about reservoirs, and somebody believes they are good at capture and utilization. Let us, I think, after today, create another platform. Might we have meetings under the MoPNG? We have been having regular discussions on the identification of reservoirs, the transportation aspect with the capture, and how to source. So each aspect in a couple of months' time that is going to get crystallized, and then we should also understand what is the financial implications of it. Also, the incentive. If I am polluting more, am I liable to pay for it, or do I turn it into a business? So first of all, that is where the collaboration will come in. So we need to benefit and learn from each other's areas and then go forward. What I can say about the industry, especially the oil and gas industry, because I think at the moment it is leading. As Dr. Rat yesterday elucidated about how it is in India, the segment to basins, the reservoirs, and he's very correct in saying, might be, there was estimation done based on the data available, but since that time there has been a lot of data which has come in, a lot of seismic, and we have also learned how we are going to identify there's so many plays, so might be the storage is more. Much more than what is actually required for India to offset its carbon emissions. So that again we can turn into a business opportunity and in fact become a hub for storage from other countries, other industries around the Indian subcontinent. And also I think this is, I'll start with the exploration strategy which Dr. Rat was talking about. Of course, the MoPNG has been very, very particular in saying that we should explore for deeper plays, put more money in knowing what all we have, and plan it in a very fast track mode. So right from there, knowing the basins, and then also starting into the transportation, there is a gap which I am noticing in India at least, because there are a lot of companies which come, they are doing one part of the CCUS chain, but there is not a consolidated portfolio. I do not know whom I have to get in touch with, to get my source for carbon dioxide, or even the chemistry part of it, which was touched. Utilization, of course, we know there is only a certain limit to which the carbon can be actually captured and utilized, but I think we need to collaborate with the R&D centers. When we had a talk with the US, they have come to assist our reservoirs, and subsequently we got invited to Jakarta. There were four people from here, industry and academia, and we had CSIR labs. So why not we bring the laboratories who are focusing on CCUS, any aspect of CCUS, together on one platform? So that is the government laboratories. Then we have the academia. We already are interacting with IITs and other universities. So again, that is another platform for collaboration. Transportation, of course, there are a lot of private players in that sector, and so we need to bring in the metallurgies. Nobody talks about that. So, the drilling aspect in ONGC or Oil India, we have the advantage of having these different verticals within the company, so they can be, just put in for use. As far as collaboration, one is the companies within India, PSU level or private sectors. We already have been talking with IOC. A lot of people know about what we try to do in terms of EOR for getting carbon dioxide from Koyani, which is around 70 kilometers. So the cost was prohibitive, and I think that is one reason why it did not take off. So one is the regulatories, of course, government, other is the cost part. So that we need to, I think, also bring in a lot of startups. There are very bright people in that sector, and they can grow in the years to come. We can have something which is made in India, again supporting the larger vision for the country and for the Prime Minister. So this is the aspect, and there are two again for oil industry. The advantage for us was we were trying to utilize the storage for EOR. So trying to take out oil by putting in CO2. But again, the carbon credits, whether it gets burned or not, is another aspect. Other is the reservoirs which Dr. Rath was talking about. We have a fairly good knowledge. Right now, we have set up laboratories within ONGC. One is at Dehradun, the other at Ahmedabad. And we are also doing rock absorption studies. There's a lot of talk on basalt absorption, but whether or how much it will hold, those studies are going on. Then, of course, seismicity we talk about, but it is, along with seismicity, we have how stressed the reservoir will become or how much it can take, how much it can be pumped in. So all those kind of studies are also going on. And the third and the most important aspect when you talk on a global scale is the environmental aspect. How long will the reservoir hold? Because the plume, the carbon dioxide plume, it is bound to progress and spread out. So is it going to contaminate my other reservoirs? Is it going to leak somewhere in the years to come? So 10 years down the line, 100 years down the line. So all that simulation needs to be carried out, and of course it has been started. We have 3D models of the subsurface. So we are trying to take in softwares within ONGC, but we are trying to do is take these kind of softwares, simulate, and also predict also the geomechanics. So there are so many, I think each and every step of the CCUS chain is a ground for collaboration. And academia, and industry, international, and we have the international association with Equinor. Then we're talking with Total Energies, they all are interested, and as of yesterday, Exxon also. So all these, so that is what I would like to do.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now very clear, there is a need for consortium, and let me then shift gears and talk on Mr. Karunji Mishra, partner and group CEO of Net Enterprise. What are your takes on consortium? What kind of consortium framework will allow all of us to come together? Can you share some examples or learnings from global consortiums and partnerships? I think you have to switch on.
Okay. Good morning all, and thank you for this opportunity. The name of the game is actually collaboration. For the simple reason that you have to hedge for risks. So you look at the projects that we have in Europe and in the US. Except for US and Europe, we talk about Porthos, for example. Porthos is a project where they're capturing the resource. There's some refineries for this refinery of Shell, and there's some other refineries and petrochemical plants. A pipeline is being laid to a compressor station, which is very close to the shoreline. And from there, 22 kilometers, it goes into a depleted oil and gas field. It's called the Tata field. It was owned by Tata, and there they will put it in. Now, that project is being done with IBM, and with Rotterdam, with Gazprom. All of these stakeholders are coming together to do this. And then you have people who are pledging their CO2 for this to start with. So you have to have that level of collaboration. And each of these companies, for Aramis, for example, that is another, is more private sector driven. So these companies are mostly semi-government driven, but in Aramis, you have Shell, you have Total, you have IBM, you have quite a few other small players. Equinor is, of course, Equinor is a Longship project where you have Total, you have Shell, Equinor themselves, and there are quite a few cement plants and petrochemical plants, etc., or like Yara is a fertilizer plant in the Netherlands for cutting the CO2, etc. So it is important to have that collaboration, and the only way it works is in a hub model. So US has 5,500 miles of green lines or CO2 lines. And people across that line, they can put in their CO2, it goes and puts it in geological storages. So in India also, what we can do is we can have that concept of collaborating with all the players, because everybody has to share the amount of money that needs to go in. Otherwise, and the technology needs to go in. So let me stop here. So essentially, the name of the game is collaboration.
Understand. Thank you, Joji. May I then call upon Ms. Shukla? We have spoken on collaboration as a theme and private-public participation, which Mr. Baruchi referred to as being key to drive this. What are your thoughts, Ms. Shukla, on how you look at collaboration across your refineries, not just for internal decarbonization as a theme, but the fact that you have collaborative atmosphere, you have ecosystem players, you have private players who are also looking at integrating and collaborating with you on that. So, please let us know about this.
Thank you. So, good morning, everyone. Joint Secretary in MoEFCC, Sunil Kumarji, following the PhD, and Dr. Rao, and then that came here. I think here I am sitting from the other side. I am not discussion took place on the side of absorbing, and now I am in the side of empty. So to say, since we are in the industries where companies are being emitted from here, just to give you some figure, like at this moment we are processing 256 million metric ton of crude. And yes, yesterday the Prime Minister has already told that it will go to the tune of 450 million metric ton per annum. So there is an increase in trade of crude processing requirement to meet the energy in the country. And that requirement to be met by all the refineries like Reliance, IOC, PPC, HPC. So that means emissions of the carbon dioxide will be more and more over the time. Now we talk about only my refinery, India only. Out of 2.6 gigaton of carbon dioxide in the country, 70% goes to the power plants and the other industries. So in this, refineries also has a big role. So out of 2.6 gigaton, IOC is, refineries currently emitting the tune of 23 million metric ton per annum carbon dioxide. And with the expansion of the increasing capacity, it should be something around 107 million metric ton, currently taken from 80 million metric ton per annum. So that is going to increase the emissions of the carbon dioxide to 39 million tons of carbon dioxide. So there is an increase. So with this increase, we have really done the calculation how to work. So first we will see the internal absorption of how to reduce the carbon dioxide by having increasing efficiency in the operations, in the heaters, in the furnaces, in the operating systems. And then comes there are schemes implementing the energy conservation and the technologies within our system. And these are the few, and then also utilization of the grid power, which will reduce less carbon dioxide, utilization of the clean source of energy, energy sources like natural gas and naphtha. So that will reduce the carbon dioxide emission from the system. So from our case, the 39 metric ton of carbon dioxide per annum emissions, we will be able to reduce to something on 60%. So 30% I have to have, like, it is hard to admit. So there my carbon capture and utilization comes in the picture. So the ways are renewable, tree plantations, certifications, that is CCS, and then CCUS. While I talk about CCUS, I have got two parts. We will consider the first is the utilization part. that is how to convert the accountancy into product part, which will give you both the benefit of your carbon tax benefit as well as the benefit of my well-cutting products. So on that perspective, Indian Oil has already gone for 3G ethanol product with bioreactions from the CO2 offsets coming out from the plant. We are also in future planning for some other products like your acetic acid plant, but it is still not economically viable. We have done some study at Gujarat, Panipat, and Parel, wherein like the CO2 coming out, pure CO2 95% coming out from ABG plant, which can be given to the beverage plant and all this. But what is happening is that the cost is becoming very high. At the same time, other products, whenever I go that we have then only alternative coming out to be a sizable quantity which can be go for the carbon capturing and sequestration, that is storage. So in the country we have two parties. One is Oil India and another is ONGC, who are holding the major part of the depleted wells and all this. So we already have a kind of a MOU with Oil India and ONGC. But the cost part is coming to the obstructions in this, because the cost part, suppose if I provide the carbon dioxide in the liquid form, the purity requires from the part of the capturing part is required 95%. And I am producing carbon dioxide 10% from my plant, which is coming out from there. So purification require about investment is to the tune of 1,000 crore in the plant. So that is becoming again cost intensive project. On the other side is also becoming cost intensive. Now, because of that particular project, and you are also becoming not viable for the carbon capture, carbon decarbonization. Because it is said that your process also increases the carbon dioxide emission. It is not making much of capturing of the carbon dioxide. So to that extent, the entire project which we plan for with Oil India and ONGC got under board. So right now we are in the discussions with Oil India and ONGC is to how to capture and store instead of going for EOR with the wells, depleted wells coming through. The challenges also come with that wherever refineries are located, the aggregations of the other facilities are not available, like fertilizer which can absorb some CO2, like cements and other plants which are not there. So that is another challenge. Even for ONGC, the challenges are that it has to travel 270 kilometers. For the Nahar Katia, it has to travel something around 35 kilometers. So all this making the project completely non-viable economically. Here, we will be going for first for the users of this for our end, and another is capturing with all these major companies, exploration companies like ONGC and Oil India. The regulatory framework probably will take a big boost for both the companies, both the organizations in the country. And that is which we are looking for, that because that will take a sizable amount of emissions from our system to this. So that is what we are looking for, that this is, at this moment, CCUS is one of the big ways which we should go for to recover most of the CO2 emitted from the refinery systems. So I am looking for that we are all public sector companies here in that cases in the country. Refineries are primarily on the public sectors. The exploration is primarily goes to the public sector. So we can have some kind of regulatory framework or carbon tax benefit to get the benefit of each other, because crude has to come from there and I have to process the crude. So it is a ecosystem which has to be created. And by that way, we can have that kind of availability framework to utilize it, that is for the benefit of the entire nation. So, in fact, in that context, the collaboration is must. So we are collaborating with, already doing it with the ONGC and the Oil India. We can go for other industries too. They are looking for. Without that collaboration, we cannot go through. So I think CCUS is an area where the more and more foremost requirement and prudent requirement is the collaboration with all the industries. Because I am the source of emitter and sinkers are available around. So we need to have a collaboration with the sinkers.
Thank you, Ms. Sudha. And thank you for pointing out the need for a regulatory framework. And I'll just park there and come back, because I'm sure there is that question that everyone wants to get an answer to. But before we move that to another debate, let me call upon and shift gears from the Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for joining us today. on the research and the academic side, because there's a whole story developing there, which is while India and thanks to all of you, we are developing our own indigenous technologies and capabilities for setting up CCUS. But let me call upon Professor Vikram Vishal from IIT Bombay, and he's been pioneering this work in what Ms. Sukla as well as earlier panelists talked about, which is technology and capabilities in India. How do you see that developing? What are the ways we can sort of collaborate international players on getting technology into India and doing these studies?
Thank you so much for the question, and thanks for having me here. It's a privilege to have all the distinguished luminaries sitting out here and sharing the knowledge and learning a lot from them rather. So collaboration is the way, basically, as Mr. Misha just said, and I think academia kind of grows on collaboration, both internal, external, and we have pretty much no boundaries international as well. So I'll first start with what Mr. Shah talked about, CDR and CCUS. So carbon dioxide removal is not just about the projected emissions, but also about the historical emissions. When we talk about removal from the atmosphere, we want correcting from 430 ppm to 280 ppm in due course, bringing the growth to 1.5 to 2 to get it back to previous times. So both the efforts are extremely important. India being a sector where a lot of plants are being planted and practice to committed 1 billion ton removal of carbon dioxide. Large amount of it is going to be CDR essentially. But their CCUS space is also growing, so the companies are evolving themselves to make this as an opportunity for business down the line, which is serving the humanity at large. For instance, nearly $1.1 trillion have been invested around the efforts to decarbonization, industry transition in 2022 alone. And this space is growing at a fast pace. Of that, 40% investment has happened in CCUS around the world. So this is not for liability, but also a great opportunity to do CCUS. The cost and scale is an important element. So only 49 million ton being captured, while reduces the 59 gigatons of greenhouse gas emissions as a whole being emitted. So the scaling up has to happen in orders of magnitude. That cannot happen at the cost which you rightly said, and that cost to do the whole operation. So the cost has to be brought down, and that will come from intense R&D. And disruptive technologies have to be brought into the picture. The efficiency have to be improved. The integration of the processes have to be brought further into this process. One example is some of the technologies that we are developing right in Bombay. And a great example of collaboration is the Center for Oil, Gas and Energy through the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, and supported by the 7 oil PSUs and engineers in India today. So that there a lot of projects have been initiated, and from the initial mission mode, now we are getting to the bridging the gap mode and trying to translate the technology to these industries, because the problems are being defined in the industry, and therefore we are able to work there. The knowledge gap that exists within the industry and within the academia can be brought forward very so to say blank from the academic world, because we are reading the literature around the world where exactly the state of art R&D is happening, and where exactly the world is struggling to jump and to bring down the cost. For instance, $45 to $50 per ton of CO2 capture is not going to be feasible at millions of ton scale in India at all. I mean, we do have our own priorities in terms of our sustainable development. So we have not peaked our emissions. So we have other priorities to also take place. Having said this, being very responsible, we have to also look for CO2 removal. So we map around 245 large point sources of emissions, and largely steel, cement, refinery, power, and other fertilizer sectors. And the emission that's happening from there is distributed around the country. We match them with the storage spaces that are available in the country. There are 13 large hubs and cluster models that can be created. So hub could be, let's say, one of the saline aquifers that we talked about, but sources can be multiple. And how do we link our CO2 source of power sector to cement sector and fertilizer, so that the transportation infrastructure is shared, and that brings down the cost of doing CCUS also significantly. And international collaboration was something very interesting is when we went to Jakarta with Madam Dawar, we got to know that Australia is going to ship its carbon dioxide to a small island country called Timor-Leste. So countries are evolving their opportunities for business by becoming sink of carbon dioxide. For every ton of CO2 they store, that gets translated into the voluntary carbon market. And those kind of understandings also come from collaboration. There are dedicated institutions around the world. Let's say Norway, we have these, the research groups like NPNU, SINTEF, and the Norwegian Geological Institute. They are all collaborating. If you visit their labs, just for risk assessment, then it's NREL in the US. They're dedicated national labs just focus on, let's say, risk assessment of CO2 storage. So there are so many elements. When we talk about Bautai risk assessment methodology, the storage capacity that we talk about comes down significantly when we have, let's say, the operational barriers, the geological barriers, the social barriers. The cost, the whole capacity what we're talking about will significantly come down when we take into account all these elements. So those such aspects have to also come, and we need to have. And final point I would have to some talk about startup. A lot of businesses are evolving from the startups from the academia. I myself am founder of a company now. The reason is that when we do innovate, if you don't find enough takers, we have the appetite now to kind of go and develop technologies and show that it can be demonstrated at TRL 5 and 6. And that's when the companies can also screen, and there are so many opportunities to screen the technologies. And this kind of collaboration also accelerates R&D from the lab to the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you for opening the doors to what global collaboration can bring in terms of technology and capabilities. And on the same note, if I can call Mr. Pratibha, global collaboration on topics of engineering. On the topic of engineering and the broader topic of CCUS, how do you see that and why is it so critical? How can we foster that?
Yeah, so I thank MoP Engineer and India Limited for inviting me to this roundtable. Discussing or you see, what I want to tell you that we are basically engineering and consulting company. So our role is to facilitate the industry to overcome these problems as a part of Net-Zero 2017 target. We are already facilitating a lot of other pathways for meeting that objectives. Let's say the green hydrogen, we are working on several green hydrogen projects which are getting implemented in the country, as well as the biofuels project, which is also one of the pathways. So the CCUS is also one of the pathways where we have to really pitch in, especially for the industry where it's hard to get the steel emission is there. So I would like to share that as an engineering company, we are working on some of these projects which are basically, I would say, CO2 utilization projects. We are working on a CO2 of course, these projects, I would say, this is a kind of a pilot scale or a demonstration scale projects as of now. We are working for the power companies. The one is a 10 tons per day conversion of CO2 ethanol project, and where we are basically working on carrying out a study, a cost estimate of the project, and a total methodology that how to let us say that how to conceptualize that project, what are the various elements that need to be really put in to achieve this target. And another project that we are working in is basically CO2 to green urea, which is also in the same direction, and it is a kind of a demonstration level project which is 150 tons per day capacity. So there, in fact, we have a much broader role that we'll be involved in the technology selection for that, and further carrying out the engineering part, preparing the complete field and putting an EPC tender to put in that facility. So we are already working on which is kind of say CO2 utilization projects. And of course, let us say that it doesn't much have that potential of a sequestration as, but still, I think these are the kind of projects that may like to see the light of the day, in the sense that, of course, the economics will always be a challenge even for these projects. But I think there are companies who are ready to put in money at least for the demonstration scale projects, and still. Because the power companies are facing a very huge challenge, because they are converting coal to power, and for them survival is an issue in the near future. That the coal definitely will not be a viable option for going to net zero power. So I think these companies are really working very, I would say, something. For them, survival is something which is to be taken on urgent basis, and we are working in this direction with these companies. Apart from that, I think we are working with India Limited on one of the projects where the CO2 will be captured from the natural gas. And I think that kind of a technology we already had since long, that natural gas CO2 removal we have been working since last many at least 2 to 3 decades, when we are capturing CO2 from the natural gas. And but at the same time, utilizing that CO2 to this thing, and that has not been in the past, which now I think we are doing with All India or NTT, put into a EOR to the in the Rajasthan wells. So I mean, these are the kind of projects that we are taking up. Besides that, I mean, because we have got a good R&D with us, we are also having our proprietary solvent which has been tested at lab scale, which can capture CO2 from flue gases, which come from typically the furnaces, and is available at very low pressure. It's a challenge. So I mean, so that is what I mean. We'll be helping the industry with these kind of because we have a lot of engineering capabilities. As I think many panelists have told that it has to be transported, and so we have a lot of pipeline capabilities. We have a lot of engineering capabilities to handle that CO2, treatment of CO2. So with that, I think we'll be able to help the industry to bring up these projects.
Super. Thank you. On the topic of technology collaboration, let me also call upon Mr. Rajshekhar. You have, of course, led engineering as well as technological development in this space globally in multiple countries. So how do you see technology collaboration of having done this globally in other areas come to India? Which formal structure will allow this to happen if we have to have the first CCUS project, for example, demonstrated in India?
Thank you everyone for inviting. I think the point starts with the fact that the cost of carbon capture today, as we see, has to come down to around the $15 per ton level from what it is around 40, 45, and that's the crux of it. And what it requires is, amongst the various technologies which are available, the technologies currently practiced with TRL levels of 8 or 9 would not serve the purpose. So what we need to have is, better or new adsorbents, the membrane separation system, TAC needs to improve further, or calcium looping systems. And currently all of them are in a TRL level of 5 or maximum 6. But as we have seen in other sectors, I'm sure that the technology innovations which are happening across the world today, over the next few years, we will see a significant improvement from the lab scale, scaling up to an industrial scale at these TRL levels becoming 8 or 9. So that's the positive part of it. But to make such collaboration successful, I think enablers would have to be multiple. While technology is one, the policy which the others spoke about, the policy regime, as well as the business model of it, the operating model of it in a collaborative manner, is very important. Our distinguished other presenters have spoken about that, how the ecosystem is working today in Europe, in Australia, in other places, about multiple companies coming together, forming consortiums for a complete CCUS project. Because this has got multiple components. From the source, the diverse kind of sources that we have for carbon dioxide, with partial pressure, high partial pressures, or lean CO2 streams, dense CO2 streams, and the multiple temperatures and pressures under which they need to be captured. So that's one part. Then the carbon capture technologies, then these transportation or the storage part, and then coming about the utilization, that means again a complete chemical engineering part, or the sequestration or storage. In today's world, we would not have, the behemoths of yesterday like a Shell or ExxonMobil providing all solutions together. And therefore, the requirement of collaboration of these multiple experts in their different fields coming together, and which we have seen, in Europe, in US as well, some of the major
CO2 transportation pipelines under high pressure, which has happened in Canada and also in northwest US and other parts, have multiple industry players contributing into the capex as well as the operational part of those projects. So then I think what's important to also discuss is about the apart from this part of the business model, is that whether it would really help for the industry to work on some sort of a BOT operating model as we go forward. Annuities, operational annuities, which would be there for the operating companies, where it is the capex involvement of the emitters of carbon dioxide is not very high. The cost can be distributed in a proper mechanism between the so-called, I would say, the operators and the emitters. The third, and I think what's most important from the overall policy or perspective is, while certain policies I think are very, very positive, what it requires is going forward the regulatory and the financing framework for that. And there are various mechanisms. There could be a carbon credit or a subsidy mechanism which Dr. Saraswat spoke of yesterday, and I think that's very much in the pipeline. And tax benefits, viability gap funding. I think creating of special CCUS funds like the CCUS Trust Fund of the World Bank, the similar funds or bonds can be declared by the government for making them successful in India. And also, of course, coupled with longer term repayment terms. So these are some of the policy or regulatory framework which would really help the industry to take it forward in a big manner. Because it's going to be a combination of all these three kinds of enablers to make it a success.
Super. Thank you, Mr. Rajshekar. And let me then touch upon this point of financing, and I'm coming back to you, Mr. Nilesh. You started talking about what kind of financing options are available, but one of the key facets you see here is giving bridging the gap of viability, but also access to funds. You alluded to some of these funds and options for financing. If you could share your perspectives very briefly on how do you see this translating and catalyzing, and I also want to talk on Mr. Sunil on the same topic, more on the regulatory framework after that. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Well, it's almost in continuation. I was going to start talking about the finance possibilities that are there, and as now almost many speakers have now spoken. There is definitely first a need for identification of the finance as to what is the purpose for which the finance is required. Finance, when we are talking of at the international forum, we are always talking of now the need for $100 billion to be provided by the international developed countries. And if we want to access this particular international finance that's available, there's a lot of discussion happening. That has not been met. That's another aspect. Fight on that is already going on. But then there are certain modes which are available internationally for the international finance to be made available. One is the GEF, the other is the GCF, Green Climate Fund, which has been set up under the UNFCCC. Now, in GEF, basically, there are two, I would say, for this audience, there are two ways in which the finance is being made available. One is something that we call star allocation. And for India, that's just around $89 billion for 4 years. That makes it around $22 billion per year. So they are under that, normally demonstration kind of projects are undertaken up to the tune of 4, 5, maybe at most 10 billion. And they have 4-year cycles, so 22 to 26 is the cycle, we are in the GEF 8 cycle going on right now. There is another possibility over there, that is a non-grant instrument. Now, what kind of funding that is provided through the non-grant instrument is they provide, and the limit is around $15 million, but then they provide this as a loan. Of course, this is not a grant, 89 million was grant. This is provided as loan, but very soft professional loan. And they provide it for coverage of various risks that are there with projects. So we had, in fact, we are into the 8th cycle, and this year, in this cycle, last year, for the first time we proposed something. I think it was for the biogas plants in the country to be brought out, or maybe EV. I'm forgetting. We had submitted 2 proposals, and I think one of them got approved. And this is steered. There are RGF agencies, UN agencies, and World Bank and ADB. So World Bank is the agency there, and CITI is the implementing entity there. So 15 billion is going to be provided, but then the blended finance that is there by the players like the World Bank and the CITI, that is around 250, because this is being covered by 15 billion or so. They are able to pump in around 250, 300, 400 million. So that's a huge amount that's going to be pumped. Through the GCF, the ticket size is large. And that can be in various modes. It could be grant, it could be equity also, it could be, there are 4 or 5 modes in which it is available. And we have that amounting to almost 100 million also in certain cases. So there are these big ticket items. I think so, I'll just pick up from what I think so, Mr. Ashekar was mentioning, and also for the technical expertise and creating these collaborations, etc. I mentioned about CTCN, which is under the UNFCCC. Now again, CTCN, it's basically the technology network arm of UNFCCC, and it provides support for various technology capacity building, etc. And once, since I'm saying it's a network, so it also brings, suppose if we have a need of a particular technology or a particular solution in the technology arena, we put our R&D over there, and then what CTCN does, it does play a matchmaker's role. It brings in experts from all across the country to provide a solution. And for this activity, there is a limit of just around $250,000. The amount is not much, but the matchmaking that they are able to do, and then for getting high amount of funding also, because they are also, I think, so located in Seoul, where the GCF is there. So through GCF, they are in a position to really bring in very large funding possibility also. So CTCN is something which we have not yet explored from our side. CTCN, but again, the CTCN needs, I myself am also the CTCN focal point of India, but then one looks forward to really great proposals to be taken forward to the CTCN. I think so. That should be good enough for the international financial possibilities that are there.
Thank you, Mr. Ramesh. Thank you. We have the last 7-8 minutes, and in the interest of time, what I'll do is get into a rapid fire mode. What I expect is a quick 10-15 second response so that we are able to cover a lot of topics. I'll start with you, Mr. Sangeet, and this is a very critical component. I think we've all alluded to regulatory framework. One of the most essential things here is when do we see CCUS formally accepted as a lever for decarbonization, and more importantly from a Ministry of Environment side as well. And what regulatory framework will help in sort of catalyzing this all together? Because I think as an ecosystem player, everyone wants to contribute. There's a very clear need to collaborate. What kind of framework will be essential to put all of this together, and when can we see that happen?
Yeah, thank you everyone for a very informative session. The regulatory framework, Ministry of Petroleum, our ministry is very well poised, because if you see carbon removal part, both utilization and storage is with us. There is a concept coming as far as I was just going to add, because refineries are going to replace their grey hydrogen with green hydrogen, and using CO2 to green methanol to SAF and other variants. So e-refining is a new concept, another decade or so it will take. E-refining and storage. Our upstream companies will be doing the storage part, and our downstream will be doing e-refining. So the whole country, the CO2 will be utilized by this. The policy framework is very important. There are many challenges, there are many stakeholders, there are many areas where starting with safety standards, regulations, policy clearances at the various levels so that the projects can move faster. And somebody talked about, Mr. talked about private-public partnership. That is very, very important. To sum up, policy framework should be done in the next 2 to 3 years with the permission. Thank you.
Clear timelines. All right. On the same note of policy, if I can invite Mr. Musa, you have looked at policies, you've looked at frameworks in different parts of the world on CCUS. What are your takes on what can we imbibe in India on policy frameworks, on fostering collaboration and partnerships?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Joint Secretaries and Chairman for the invitation, and it's a great honor to be among the distinguished panelists. So we, as a technology provider, of course, SLP, our role in CCS value chain goes around where we are able to create value when it comes to costs, reducing the risk of CCS projects and enabling the project economics. That is our core role is. When it comes to the policies, what we do see definitely is, I just referred to a question yesterday that came up in the panel and we discussed. We said, okay, who's going to eventually pay for it, and what is the policy? What eventually is going to be the policy around it? It's technically it's a very complex question, and having the carbon ecosystem in a country is a must. I think one thing is very critical is for society to understand that for us to breathe clean air costs. And everybody at the end of the day will pay its share of tax. That is, I think, what is where globally the governments are going towards, where everybody will chip in. Now, the equity is a great point that it was highlighted yesterday, how soon it will come. I think, my 2 cents on that is the educating the population that this is the way to go, and getting the society to come and support it. It's something that we do see in elections. The US is coming up, and in new elections for green movements, and hopefully we see that coming across the board in many countries. That is the point I had on policies. Maybe 2 points I wanted to add what we see as enablers of CCS as well. One thing that is important is to look at CCS as an unconventional business. We need unconventional partnerships as well, unconventional supply chain, unconventional relationship. That is, I think, a critical point to bring to the table. The second point I wanted to highlight is the technical credibility. There are a lot of movements against CCS as well. The financiers are not easy going in a lot of times against where the policies are there. I think relying on technologies that are available, the technology provided capabilities is critical to bring the cost of financing down as well. And the last point I wanted to highlight is the great entry point in most places is pilot projects, demonstration projects. The risk is low. The appetite is there, and I think that is a great venue for India to move. Yeah, I hope. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. Can I then call upon last towards the end, but more importantly, we touched upon the concept of storage and sequestration. I also wanted to draw upon your expertise in the topic of utilization. Now, we do understand. ArcelorMittal Nippon Steel has implemented a very successful utilization project globally, and that's one of the areas that, given the high cost of utilization, there are few projects that have been shown commercially a successful and scalable model. What are your takes on utilization in this field? What is required for it to be successfully demonstrated in India? Which kind of products, which kind of technologies will work, and so on?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. So I'll briefly touch upon this utilization part, and then I'll come to another very important part which I want to highlight over here. So yes, globally, our parent company ArcelorMittal has done a point of CO2 ethanol, bioethanol production in Kenya. Now that project came to be by public-private collaboration. That is, government chipped in 50% of the cost, and the company chipped in another 50% of the cost. And London was the technology partner. That's how it worked. And this is part of their Fit for 55 module wherein they had come out with a lot of, like we do PLIC over here, they called out proposals, or TST over here, calls out proposals for research and all, or pilot projects, just like that, the things will move over there. Now coming back to India, it may not work that way because the scale is quite big and the ask is quite big. So maybe a little question. But what I wanted to highlight over here is that we were talking about collaboration, we were talking about coming out of silos, Madam was saying, and the policy framework and everything. But before all of that, currently there is an opportunity. The ENPs have the knowledge of the subsurface. They have the knowledge of the entire geography of the country, mostly I would say. And there are hardware settlers like us who are struggling with because we know for sure that going forward, even if the hydrogen comes up in commercial scale, it will not be able to fully replace all the blast furnaces which have been conventionally producing steel even by 2050. So CCUS, CCU and CCS both becomes quite a priority for us. And right now, there is an opportunity since I'll take an example of my company. We are situated in the West Coast. And as per the initial estimates, there is quite a good potential of sequestration and basalts and the oil fields. But we are not getting there yet. We are not getting the cross-sectoral collaboration. So what I wanted to advocate through this forum over here is, let's start with what we already have. Come together and have proper discussion. We can have the research R&D institutes like IIT, who are the topmost authority on this. They can act as a bridge between ENPs and other sectors who would want to at least show some demonstration projects, or at least do the viability studies. Because we are talking about policy framework and everything, but the policies will only be coming into place once there is a viability established. And there is a proper visibility on the finance or everything on the risks associated with projects. And those things can only be done by doing small scale projects and collaboration between all the players. This is my apologies. Thank you.
Super. Thank you, Mr. Weber. And thank you all. We are coming towards the end of the roundtable discussion. One of the key takeaways for me is the fact that while the technology is new, while this is a very essential lever for decarbonization in India, there is a need to have a net that binds us all. Right? We call it in the frame of a regulatory framework. There are policies. But beyond regulatory framework and policies, I think there's a need to have an ongoing discussion of these kind of collaborative platforms that will help in binding all of us together to put and see the scale of CCUS that we want to see. So thank you all, and thank you for providing your contribution. I hope we continue this dialogue going and go out. Mr. Sunil, I think closing thoughts from your side, and we can wrap it up.
Looking forward to this great opportunity.
Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you. Yeah, it was a wonderful session.